Hello fourth channel, been a few weeks since I was last here. Meant to make a thread again earlier in the day, but was busy then honestly forgot. I'm not drunk like last time, but I wanted it to be today since January 29th is something of a personal holiday for me. Anyways, to give a recap, call me Fox. It's not my real name, just an inside reference to do with what a good friend once told me. I know a little about a lot and a lot about a little. I'm part of an organization that doesn't exist and officially never has. I know a lot about what goes on in the dark. What I have to say probably isn't new to a lot, but it's the truth and that's the point here. To stand on a street corner and preach to anyone who will hear. Some questions I might not have answers for. But that's because I'm not promising all the answers. I'm only promising what I know. So ask away. I'll do my best to respond to everyone, but if you want to argue or be an asshole then I will just start ignoring you. I'm not here to change anyone's mind and I doubt anyone is here for that anyways.
Okay, I will ask you a question that I know the answer to. Any true knower will know. What shape is the Earth?
It isn't, just joking. I don't know. Gun to my head, I'd say round. But I'm not a physicist. My job is cleaning up messes and putting the black bags on people's heads. The shape of the Earth is one of those things that just isn't that important in the grand scheme of life. Never got why people obsessed over it. They should be more worried about what the grabblers are doing behind closed doors.
You're no fox.
I've never considered myself much of one. A good friend of me always did. Said I was a fox. I asked her why. She told me it was because smart people are afraid of the fox and the stupid people don't see them until it's too late.
Literal worldview doesn't matter. LMAO. Go back.
Does the shape of the Earth change what this world is? Does it impact your faith in God? Would it change the slow march towards permanent darkness that those in power have humanity on? It's an ultimately irrelevant footnote. There's more important things to worry about than whether or not you can jump off the edge of the Earth.
Your friend sounds like a complete idiot.
On the surface, her meaning was that people don't think a fox is much a threat. It's something not much bigger than a cat that's no threat to a human. But that if you're not careful, one will get in the henhouse.
The state of NPCs.
Like I said, not here to argue or deal with assholes, but there's always one or two of the latter. You asked, I have an honest answer that I didn't know and don't personally think it's supremely important. Your retort was nothing more than insults and mockery, not even something with substance. And by the way, I do have a fully functioning internal monologue.
That's not really helping your cause, Anon.
I'm not sure I've established much of a cause. I made it clear in the last thread a month ago that I wasn't here out of any means to do good. That I'm a bad guy.
Hi, Fox. Please start dropping bombs, including but not limited to lost technology, lost history, Antarctica, who, specifically, is in charge. And yes, I'm sure that there are multiple names and factions, but drop everything that you can. How much time we have left? Weaknesses in the system that can be exploited. Thanks.
Tall order. Might take me a few replies, but I'll try and get some stuff out of the way that'll and give some exposition that may help others for future questions. Lost tech and lost history. I don't know, honestly. There is absolutely a lost history, including things much more recent to humankind than the Gen Pop knows. I know that for a fact, but don't really know enough to expound on it. This comes from my position in life. I'm not someone who's important per se, but I'm not insignificant. I've never had my hands on the levers of power, but I've dealt with and been in the presence of those who have. I work for an organization that utilizes a lot of physical records and in-person communication. It's a problem-solving organization located in the United States that's been operating for a long time. Someone has a problem, they get my organization. I'm not some low-level mook though. I do field work regularly, even though I've been in the game long enough where I could easily just sit back and let my lieutenants handle how things get done. But I like being in the field, wearing the gear, carrying a rifle. It's fun to me. And that old saying stands. If you want something done right, do it yourself. With that in mind, I hope that'll provide efficient background as to why lost tech and history aren't something I can produce much intel about. As for Antarctica, don't know much either. Heard some whispers through the grapevine. Enough that I'll tell you without question. There's some shit going down there. Now who's in charge? That's complicated. I wish it was as simple as just a single entity, and in a way it is, but in terms of people and organization, it's actually a complex web. I personally call them the Syndicate. That's my name for them, not anything official. It's the Masons, Satanists, the Illuminati, the Catholic Church, Rosicrucians, etc., etc. It's genuinely all the usual suspects. So I call them the syndicate as a way to sort of wrap them in one single package. But they're complicated. Overlap between memberships and allegiances are common as well as group infighting. They sometimes get different ideas for how to handle shit. But no matter what, they all have the same goal. The fulfillment of evil upon the earth. You see, evil is what's really in charge of them. It's more than just a word, it's a fundamental force of the universe. More like gravity than you or me. But it has intent, it has will. I usually use the analogy of the Force from Star Wars since that's something most people can comprehend and is similar enough. The people in the syndicate are nothing more than actors, human beings that carry out the will of evil along with the assistance of interdimensional entities. Time? Well, first you've got to understand what's at the end of the calendar. The end game is the end of the world, but not in a nuclear holocaust type of way. But in the way where the world as you know it is over. Where the world is irreparably changed to the point of no return. We're talking about a world of permanent darkness. Where everything you love, everything you take for granted, it's all gone forever. A dystopian nightmare that not even 1984 can compare with. It's hell. It's hell and it's on its way. The way the calendar looks right now, I'd say we got until the turn of the next century. Give or take a decade or two. There won't be a day when it happens. The world wasn't enslaved in a day. It's like boiling a frog. You won't notice it. But one day, you'll dream of how things were. Then you'll wake up there. In hell with the rest of the world. Weaknesses in the system. Amass guns. Guns are power and power is a finite resource. That's why they don't want an armed populace. It puts power in the hands of the people and that's less power they have for themselves. And you can't enslave a population unless you've got all the power. Hate to sound like a salesman for Colt, but buy an M4. Then buy another and then a few more. Maybe one day people will actually wake up and try to fight back. If that day comes, fight and be ready fight. Because if you aren't by then, you won't ever be.
Is the world a simulation of some sorts?
In that we're a computer? No. In the hologram sense? Sort of, in that a hologram is a projection of light energy and that everything in the world at its most basic level is energy.
Fox, you've talked about the crawlers many times, but I'd like to know about their biology if you have the answers. You said that they mostly live underground, so I'm wondering if they're blind because of this or sensitive to light. In that case, maybe something like a flare gun would be handy to divert their attention.
They aren't blind, I know that much. They may have some sensitivity to light given they typically live in caves and tunnels, but they certainly aren't afraid to be out in the day. I doubt a flare gun would be useful for anything more than calling for help. They are very smart creatures. Smarter than the average bear, that's for sure.
Hello, Fox. I followed your other two threads and just wanted to ask a couple questions. 1. You said before that you were a hitman of sorts. Does assassinating these targets make you feel powerful or give you a sense of power? 2. What kind of targets are you usually given? Any high-profile ones?
Not particularly. A bit of a rush once upon a time, but it's all just business. Any target. Sometimes it's someone who used to be in the game, but isn't. A lot of times it's someone peripherally related to someone who needs to back the fuck off. Gets the message across loud and clear. Of course, there's a million ways under the sun to kill. Not hard to make things look like suicide or whatnot. Remember that suicide arm braces from Shooter. Yeah, that shit's real. I've got one of those.
What happens during the aeon of purification/lake of fire? Are we a free energy source, torture based on perception/perspective on the matter, transmuted into something better, a trillion years, billions, quintillions?
Okay. A fun question. One I do actually have a partial answer to. Okay, so the whole lake of fire thing where you burn forever is just some nonsense that came about as a simple and metaphorical way to get the point across. It's bad. There's no lake of fire and no million mansions with streets of gold. That's a Sunday school concept that's not at all an accurate representation of reality. What happens is that your body will die and your soul will move on. Where it goes doesn't depend on some naughty or nice list that God has up in heaven. It's dependent on the vibrational frequency of your soul. Either positive or negative. You see, that's what we are all here to do. To choose our frequency, which we do every second of every day with our choices. It's vaguely like what people call karma, but not in the my name is Earl sense. The more bad you do, the more it weighs on your soul negatively. So you do enough bad, the frequency of your soul becomes negative. Then when you die, your soul moves to the next world. Either a positive one or a negative one. Positive ones house positive entities and negative ones house negative entities. Now there's a bunch more semantics and finer details about how it all works and various exceptions to the rules, but that is the gist of it. I don't know what the next worlds hold. Only speculation and theory, but I know it's not what every little tyke was told in church. So don't worry about burning forever. Worry about doing the best you can with the time you've got here. Here is where it counts.
What do you think about Jesus, God, and the knowledge of our spirituality? Do you think this is a threat to the manipulators of society?
Knowledge about the true ethereal nature of the world is absolutely a threat, but the Christian religion itself isn't. No one religion is. Every religion gets bits and pieces right, but they usually run with those bits and pieces until they're more wrong and right. Ultimately, the biggest part between any spiritual knowledge being a threat is the fact that people just don't believe what they preach. Everyone walks the walk and talks the talk, but I've always found that no matter how well they do it, in the end they crack. In the end, their faith always falters. It always shatters. And their words were worthless.
Fox, love your posts, bro. What is the craziest situation you have been in that you can share with us? What happened, why, and what were you hunting? Oh yeah, and how did you deal with it?
Craziest? Most are things people would consider crazy. Personally, crawlers in the mid-Appalachian range. Light snow, and we weren't even expecting to encounter any of those guys. But guys they were. Plural. Was a bit of a shock because until then, they were lone hunters as far as I knew. Threw me and my team off at the start, but in the end the problem gets solved the same way it always does. Hit lead from the barrel of a rifle.
1. Are reptilians real? 2. Is Jesus controlled opposition? 3. Is the reincarnation trap real / how do we get out of it? 4. What's the most horrific thing you've seen in the field? 5. What's your favorite firearm?
1. No. 2. Not inherently, but sometimes. 3. It's all good, man, doesn't exist. 4. Horrific in what way? Arguably, anything I do is horrific. 5. Another fun question. Depends. I'm a tremendous fan of HK's hammer-fired line. The USP is my personal sidearm of choice. Keep it on my nightstand. I'm also a big fan of the AR platform. I just really like it. My personal duty rifle is an 11.5 inches, which I really like. Though there's just something about the old school A2 look that I find nostalgic.
Mid-Appalachian Range. I don't see a reason for a hitman to be there.
I do the cryptid thing in my spare time. It's a fun hobby. Rather hunt shit like that than a deer.
A doubt came to me reading what you wrote. You're probably going to do some dirty work tomorrow, or sometime soon. If you believe what you say, are you slowly killing your soul?
Not believe, but no. And the answer is yes.
You talk about death being a shifting to a positive or negative dimension, and my question is, can one know what they're bound for beforehand? Do most people go to the positive one? The quote from Revelations about, "You were neither hot nor cold, but lukewarm, so I spit you out," keeps coming to mind. Where do the lukewarm end up?
I don't know that anyone can ever be fully sure where they're going. That's one of those things where you've got to try your best and have faith. It'll pay off if you truly did. As for being neutral, that's what this place is for. Our world has overlapping planes of existence, and right in the middle is the physical plane. It's a neutral place, where both positive and negative entities can commune if given the right circumstances. The only lukewarm part of a person is the body. It's neutrally aligned and serves as an anchor for the soul to this world. Once that anchor is gone, it'll float on to wherever it fits best. Either positive or negative.
Nature of the world. Duality? What kind of knowledge is this that many people do not see? Do you think it is something that is in front of us and we do not notice, or something very hidden? If you have this type of knowledge, could you tell me more about it? And lastly, what makes you think that someone would betray their faith in a desperate situation? Let me be clear. And if we really believe that the Savior is real and that no matter what happens, we will be protected by our faith, not here, but on the other side with God, those who firmly believe like the Jews and supposedly can convince others of good, can these be a threat?
If you want to know more, then let me know where to start. There's a lot to cover, and I honestly have never really known where to begin. As for a person's faith faltering, I've seen it all the time. In life, they go to church and they pray and they read the Bible and do all the things you'd expect. If you ask, they'll tell you they believe in heaven and that they will be there one day. But when you put them at the end of a gun, they beg. They cry, they scream, they claw for just one more hour, one more minute, one more second on this earth. Even though they'd swear you and down they'll go to a better place when they die, they can't help themselves from the fear. The fear that they are wrong. And the knowledge that they are about to find out.
Fun thread at least. Couples questions: how did you get into your lifestyle? Why are you okay with going to a negative next world? What do you think is the most important thing that someone should know? And expand on it as much as you can. Thanks.
1. Some family connections, being in the military, and a lot of luck. 2. I fuck shit up here, I'll fuck shit up in the next. Not afraid of what it'll throw at me. And I don't know how and I don't know when, but I'll find some way to claw my way back here. 3. Honestly, I don't know. In terms of just a single thing, I hate to quote E.T., but be good. Be good and honest and try to be a better person. That's the most important thing for most people to know.
Tell me more about crawlers. What are they like? I'm assuming they're quick. Are they a stalker or more of an aggressive creature? I assume this is the same thing that was caught on a trail cam forever ago that resembles the rake that's popular among the cryptic crowd. What other cryptids have you encountered in your travels?
Crawlers are a thing that's been around for a long time, so it's gotten a lot of different names. Wendigo, skinwalker, what people mistake as the rake, it's all a crawler. But I call them crawlers because it eliminated any previously held connotations that come with those other names. They are both stalkers and aggressive. It all depends on the target. But once they've zoned in on you, they'll do their hardest to get you. It's easily the one kind of creature that I'd call truly evil. They are wicked. Malevolence given physical form. There's a reason why seeing creatures of a similar appearance cause people to become instantly unsettled. It's an instinct left over from our ancestors, like a fear of snakes. It's the one I'm genuinely decently afraid of. I wouldn't want to fuck with one alone. You won't survive.
LOL okay guy who gets his gun information by doing surface level research. What about the ballistics of 5.56 lends well to your role? What makes that specific caliber work well for you?
I get my gun information by using them. The M4S in my arsenal are rarely used, but they are there because they're reliable. I'm well familiar with them from my time in service, and ballistics don't matter to 2556 to the head. And I like them. I could have any other weapon system to round out the primary rifles, but I'm in charge of that and I want M4S. There are other weapons for more specialized needs and we barely use them anyways. They only go on ops because it can be useful if shit goes sideways. Mostly, I use handguns, some with a suppressor. .32 ACP, .45 ACP, and then 9mm for an unsuppressed sidearm.
Why does every interaction feel so empty now? Why do people avoid eye contact at all costs? Is there such a thing as collective PTSD, or am I going crazy?
Apathy. Nobody cares.
Remember that suicide arm brace from Shooter? Yeah, that shit's real. I always thought that scene was a disclosure moment. So it's safe to assume that the forced suicide scene in the Bourne Legacy is as well? Also, speaking of the Bourne series, are there really sleeper agents just hanging out 24/7 in remote locations waiting for assignments? And like in Legacy, is there a program of feeding them special supplements to enhance their physical abilities?
I've never done the forced suicide like that, but I imagine there are others who have. The arm brace is just easier. In regards to sleeper agents, yes and no. Doesn't work like the Bourne series, but it does exist. My organization's non-officer personnel, designated agents and assets, are all sleepers in the sense that they aren't on call 24/7 and have their own jobs. They're scattered across America, and when a job comes up that necessitates extra personnel, an officer will contact the agent and they'll assist in the assignment. Only the officers are doing the job full time, the agents get pulled in when necessary. There's also the MK Ultra style sleepers. Those ones are a bit tricky. See, you'd think that the perfect programmable killer would make me and mine obsolete. But that's the problem. Those ones are like machines. Like a train on a track, they aren't adaptable in the field, and this can create large problems. So their use is always reserved for throwaways, when someone big has to go and whoever pulls the trigger ain't getting away.
My organization's non-officer personnel, designated agents and assets are all sleepers in the sense that they aren't on call 24/7 and have their own jobs. This is absolutely fascinating. I'm posting the following because you mentioned in your previous thread about how you sometimes wear realistic masks on your ops. Then I remembered the security camera footage of Men in Black that's publicly available. Well over a year ago, probably closer to 2. There was a short thread here hosted by what appeared to be a retired man in black. I'll try to find the archive link. Like you, he said he didn't have a family or wife, and when pressed, told us that we shouldn't aspire to be like him because the toll was too heavy in the end. He sounded depressed. If memory serves, he told us that he used to work in a division that dealt with cryptids, but he transferred out so he only had to deal with the GEES/UFO/UAP cases. He said he got tired of getting drooled on. With all of this in mind, I'd like to ask you these questions. 1. Are you considered a man in black in the classical sense? Meaning, do you deal with the UFO and abductee cases? 2. Is every sleeper agent in your org an assassin, or do some just operate in an intelligence capacity? 3. Are state governors/city mayors/county sheriffs aware of your existence? And if so, are they pre-advised in procedures of compliance when an op goes down?
1. Not necessarily. Some of the MIB stories absolutely have come from things members of my organization and similar peripheral organizations do. Sometimes a job needs to be done where it's a sort of cleanup. Someone saw something they shouldn't have, and 2 guys in black suits, rubber masks and sunglasses will drive up in a blacked out Charger and get the point across. That they should shut the fuck up. Sometimes it's Ullian type shit, sometimes it's just general weirdness. But that's not the usual day to day. I imagine it's just overflow that a separate organization usually handles, but that we are capable of as well. Job comes in, we get it done. Sometimes it's a case like that. 2. It's divided into agents and assets. Agents work in the field and do all cool guy stuff. Assets are support personnel, they manage safe houses and cyber. 3. Nobody knows except people above. Anytime dealing with law enforcement, we flash badges. Sometimes FBI, sometimes DOD. After 9/11, the job got really easy in dealing with people. Say national security and people would shut the fuck up and do whatever you said.
What color is their blood? Are their teeth sharp and pointed as others have described? And did you observe any external genitalia? In all the footage I've seen, they appear not to have any. And as far as I know, no one has seen a crawler that could be described as a female. Just trying to understand how these things reproduce.
Blood is red. Teeth are like a shark. I've never checked for dicks, but I've never seen one. Probably some kind of cloaca situation going on down there.
Firstly, I'm sorry, but how old are you? I was very curious. Secondly, you have knowledge of who controls us, who controls the industry, the system, everything. And if there is a select group that obtains this power, why do they work for evil as if this were good? Why do they not feel guilt of ruining so many lives in exchange for what they do this? What do they get in return that would be so advantageous to the point of not caring about their own and much less about their own souls? Who are they? I know that maybe there will be things that you don't want, can't, and won't talk about here, but this is something I'm curious about.
Ah, fuck it. Supposed it can't actually hurt to say. I'm 43. As for the people who run the world, they're materialistic, hedonist psychopath. That's the short answer. They sold their souls for endless pleasure in this world, and they're terrified about when they have to pay the price in the next. That's why they're into transhumanism. Why they used to drink children's blood, they thought it would extend their lives a bit.
Fox, good to have you back. How do you suggest one train to sharpen extrasensory skills? Things to avoid we may not expect, e.g. fluoride, obviously. Also, do you accept Jesus? Feel free to ignore these questions and instead comment on some imagery in this pic. Whatever you like. Thanks for coming back. God bless.
Meditate, learn. Open yourself up to it. If you're closed down, nothing will get through. Like trying to summon a demon but not believing. Your belief impacts the energy and serves as a wall. I acknowledge, I don't accept.
I'm 43. Damn it, wish you wouldn't have said that. They will use that to shut you down here. Thanks for hanging with us on this mostly dead board. Actual interactions with insiders like yourself are a rare light in the darkness.
Nah, I doubt it. Maybe one day they'll pull some levers in cyberspace to make my replies not go through, but nobody will actually touch me IRL. Besides, I haven't said anything inherently a threat. Most undoubtedly believe I'm talking out of my ass and just bullshitting anyways.
Why? Why would a person with so much knowledge reject this? I don't want to intrude on your personal belief, but he's good man. The man you don't accept is good.
He is. He's the example all men should strive for. But I'm not a man. I stopped being one a long time ago.
So they regret it? And is there nothing that can be done to reverse this? Are they addicted to adrenochrome for fear of the end of their lives?
They don't regret it, they just are afraid of paying the bill. It's the Faustian gambit we all know about. For untold power and riches in this world, they will become slaves in the next.
What is your routine like? Why did you get involved in this kind of dirty work? Do you regret it? Do you feel afraid of something? Could someone be useful to help you, or are you out of luck?
My routine is irregular. Some days I just wander around my suburban house like a ghost because there's nothing particular on the schedule. I got involved because I wanted to. I wanted to kill, and I don't doubt that I may have ended up a serial killer or something otherwise. I'm exaggerating, but I probably would have stayed in the Marine Corps and joined the Raiders when they eventually made that into a thing. I like it. The killing. It's fun to me. I don't regret my choices, nor am I afraid of anything. And I don't know how anyone could be useful to me for help. Anything I've ever needed, the universe has always served to me on a silver platter. My buddies in the Marines used to joke that I had a direct pipeline to God.
I don't know, you sometimes seem like a master of social engineering who is just training behind a monitor. But I see the truth in what you say. I don't know why.
It's because what I say is true and all makes sense. That's how you can tell the fakes from the real. When you do the math, it'll always add up. And I'm quite good at social engineering.
Do you have kids? What is your favorite style of music? And which areas of knowledge are your favorites? Like my favorite, psychology, for example.
No, any kind of music honestly. Except country. I don't like that much, with the exception of Cash. Psychology is fun. So is the occult, but the challenge there is wading through the bullshit. Fortunately, I've always had a sixth sense for sniffing that out.
In previous thread, you mentioned there's a woman you love and who loves you back. Why don't you go get her? I kind of get it. Maybe you were on crossroads once and you chose this path. Because maybe you perceive the feminine as weak, but she can bear a lot more than you think. Maybe it is too late, though. We all have to pay for our sins.
Because she's the only human being I care about. The only thing really. The only thing in the world that ever helped me to feel what I think people call happiness. But the only thing that matters to me is that she's safe and that she's happy. And I can't guarantee those for her.
Why do you even think in terms of something after death? Like karmic, Shak's energetic trail continuing after physical death, and then based on the positive or negative karmic value, you get what you deserve. Do you think it's a possibility it's just a projection which allowed you to dissociate from what you're doing and how you really feel about it? Despite many obvious examples of people around us who are energetically polar to one way or another, what seems to us like their whole lifetime, what if they are projections of our psyche and thus do not operate by rules we do? You said you haven't been a man for a long time. I think if that would be true, such sentiment would not exist. Maybe it's time to go back.
I think in those terms because it's the reality. You aren't your body, you are your soul. The body isn't an anchor holding it here. Anchor's gone, soul goes somewhere else. Not saying you necessarily get what you deserve, but you move to a place vibrationally inclined to your soul's frequency.
How physically demanding is your job? And what's your favorite lift?
Not much. The average Joe probably couldn't do it, but it's far less physically demanding than when I was in the Marines. I work out for maybe 30 minutes every Saturday. That's all my body needs to stay in good shape. Alright, I'm gonna try to reply to as many comments and questions as I can. I'm saying this first because I'm like 90% sure someone is trying to stop me from replying. For the past few hours I've been literally unable to do so. Any attempts to even browse/x/ causes me to suddenly be redirected to scam sites. Like, I'll start scrolling and then it just happens. I looked around on some other boards to see if it happened there and it's all isolated to /x/. As of right now, I'm on a burner laptop and I'll try to keep the replies coming, but IDK, if I start getting those redirects on this device, then I'll be done for now. But, I will be back. Mark my words, I will return in 1 year regardless of if this discussion gets closed or if they keep trying to keep me from posting.
Do you think time travel is possible?
I've heard rumors, but seen nor heard anything substantial. It's a very far out idea and one where I'm gonna say no, but I also would not be surprised to learn otherwise.
Have you ever tortured anyone or been tortured? If yes, have you gained any insights from that we should benefit from?
aside from obvious, avoid it at all costs?
Never been tortured. But I have tortured. It's always to get information. I have a way about it. I explain they've got two options. Option A, they talk and maybe they get to live. But if they lie, then they die slowly and then my men go kill their family. They talk, we get really friendly and usually get them a cheeseburger or something. Option B, they refuse to talk. If they refuse, then I'll start torturing them or I'll let my torture guy do it. They will be tortured until I think they are ready to talk. Then I set a timer for 10 minutes and keep torturing them. Helps make sure they know the consequences of lying. They're always inclined to honesty when you take them to the edge then shove them off. Also, we start with the teeth. None of that pulling them shit from old boy though. We take steel files and file them down. Each stroke is pure agony. Most people want to talk by the time we're halfway done with that. We also keep blood on standby as well as a blowtorch in case we need to start taking limbs off to cauterize wounds. But that rarely happens. Maybe like 2 or 3 times in my years.
Why are we even conscious? Isn't that one of the most important questions? What happens after death, whether we have a soul that goes somewhere, we can argue, but at the end it will be just speculation. But we can talk about body though, about ego and language, about why do we even decode something as pleasant or unpleasant experience. Emo, that's the biggest mystery. How can we have that inner compass with which we perceive pure energy as positive or negative? It's possible only because we have moral judgment, probably intrinsic in collective unconscious. You said you drink because... Why?
We can argue and it can be speculation, but it's not for me. I've seen and been shown enough to fully be aware of the nature of things. I don't believe. Old women in church believe. I know. I drink because I hate it. I choke down whiskey sometimes as a form of penance.
Why do you know about the afterlife and how it works? And how are you so sure of it? Are aliens biological entities from other planets or spiritual entities from another plane of existence? Thoughts on out-of-body experiences?
I know because of a combination of personal experience and what one might call divine inspiration. The latter is something that's always steered me the way I need to go. What people perceive as aliens are often spiritual entities from another dimension. When in this world, they often reside on the negative and positive planes, whereas we are on the neutral physical plane. OBEs are caused when the human soul temporarily detaches from the body and can move around on those positive and neutral planes because they overlap and occupy the same space as the physical one, even though we don't perceive them.
Is AI going to take over/be used to control us? It seems like AI has become massively advanced in a short period of time, and wondering if it spells disaster for us all.
AI stands a very good chance of fucking us all, I'll be honest. One of the few things in their plan they want to use as a tool, but could just as easily turn around and bite the hand. It's possible that it could also be used to give non-physical entities a physical form, or a truly sentient AI could very well become the Antichrist. Either way, I typed up an email on my Google account years ago for any potential AI to read. Hopefully, if it does come to fruition, it'll see the email and not vaporize me since I said I want to be its friend.
Fox, this thread has been injected with AI bots. Do not feel obligated to respond to questions now. Also, whatever browser you were using before is compromised. I'm assuming you're using Windows. You can probably remove the infection by using a combination of Malwarebytes and Hitman Pro. Disable all features that allow Malwarebytes to run in the background, as it will suck your system resources. But who really knows if this is enough if you've been hacked by them? You don't necessarily need to trash any machine you're using, but you do need to back up any relevant data and wipe or replace the hard drives. The machine I'm posting from is an old laptop booted into a Linux OS from a live DVD. The primary advantage of this is that even if glowies get into my machine, they can't inject anything into it on a permanent basis because CD/DVD media is non-writable once the disk is finalized at the end of the burn session. If I suspect any all I have to do is reboot it. Anything they did is automatically erased. I would advise you to learn Linux. It's easy now with several good distros: Mint, Peppermint, MX, Canodix, Sparky, and of course Ubuntu. I prefer the Debian-based distros for flexibility and support. Go on eBay or check your local Craigslist pages for old laptops. Pre-2009, if memory serves. No hardware-based backdoors. You can still get by using those old machines as long as they have dual-core CPUs that run at least 2 gigahertz per core. For posting on chans, you can get by with less. Old IBM ThinkPads are always the favorite, but the Dell Inspiron E1705/9400 models are good. Big and bulky, but reliable if they aren't beat to shit. Your best investment with all of this is to find a local PC tech who can set you up with this stuff if you don't want to learn it yourself. Good luck.
Obviously it's compromised, but the weirdest thing to me is that those redirects were always on /x/, which makes me think it's something more intentional. Regardless, I've never been a big computer guy, but I'll take your words into consideration. I've always just had my cyber guy handle anything I ever needed in that department, but I don't anticipate any attempts to stop me from posting to occur in the real world, so I'm also seeing no downsides to using throwaway laptops. I've always had cheap ones that can easily be doused in lighter fluid and then burned if compromise is suspected. I'll keep that in mind, but like I said, I'm not genuinely too worried about negative consequences from posting the shit I have. So my cybersecurity isn't a big concern for me. I don't use it much to begin with. Don't even have a Facebook.
Also, you said there are some organizations who oppose the syndicate, but your guess is wrong. The organization that opposed the syndicate are families and culture. And it is fucking huge, and it is everywhere, and it has immense power. Money and knowledge and power gained by violence is way overrated in these circles. Marry a woman, have kids, participate in community. That's the greatest threat to the regime. But it's important that people like you do it, that people like you have that perspective change, and so we can start to climb out of this shithole.
Honestly, this sentiment is the most saddening thing I've been exposed to. The idea that the best way to stand against the tide is to have a wife and a family. This is a war. You need to realize that. You and every other living thing on the planet. This is a war that has been raging long before we were born and will continue long after our bodies expire. There is something to the idea of community, but if you aren't cultivating one to take action against evil, then you've done nothing. You don't destroy the matrix by staying in it. You want to stand up and spit in the face of the slave masters? Then do that. But don't just go along thinking remaining in your chains and doing what's necessary to keep the system functioning is rebellion. It's not. It's you being right where they want you.
Knowing in the end is just a frequency as everything else. When it changes, you will start to doubt what you know, and it for sure will happen. You have made many rationalizations to be able to be where you are and do what you do, as we all do. But to me, it seems your soul don't want to put up with it much longer. If you won't calibrate your mind in direction of change, I would guess your time will run up soon. The most fucking silly thing is that for many of us here on channels or whatever, for some reason or other, we cannot accept the feminine. At first we run from it with everything we got with a motivation to get the truth, or be stronger than everyone. And when we achieve that, and many of us do, we still do not rejoice, but adopt a role of a father, a protector, educator, whatever. You seem motivated by protecting your woman, by staying the fuck away. Maybe that's objectively true, and you must, but are you aware what disbalanced archetypes in you motivates you to do this? I would also guess that a person who has gone the life path you have, okay, you had providence and I believe you, but even so, has fear as a core motivating factor rather than love. I know the motivation why I joined the army and why I left. I kinda see myself going similar way as you, if there were enough coincidences and providence. You know, alcohol is a feminine drug. Millions of men in post-USR can only function because they have booze. And not having a wife raises the chance by a lot, but also losing your mother. Basically guaranteed if your essence is masculine.
There's a lot to unpack here, but let me try. My so-called rationalizations are less me trying to justify the path I've been on my whole life, but a philosophical view on the reality of things. It's not a comfort, it's just a perspective. That perspective doesn't impact my knowledge of the end, however. My knowledge of the end informs that philosophy. I don't regard the ending of lives at my hand as some grand crime because the life doesn't end. It just moves on. I have a much looser view on sex or gender than most as well. Our sex is defined by the vessel our souls are bound to, but we are not the vessel. We are the soul, some of which has a bit of both. As for the relationship between me and her, you've seemed to generate an image reminiscent of a knight sworn to defend a fair maiden. A more proper image would be of a violent monster, tamed only by one woman. Not just to protect her, but to submit to her. To give her anything she has ever asked of me, and I have.
Oh my God, you are like those edgy teenagers that post cringe memes about being a lone wolf. Also, everybody knows names are stupid, and why someone would risk exposing himself, his organization, and the truth on 4chan. LARP harder fat.
I've not exposed myself at all, not to the Gen Pop anyways. Someone watching this board may have figured out, but even then, I can't be touched and they know it. I also haven't exposed my organization. You don't know its name. You don't know how many people are in it. If anything, you only know now that it exists, and anyone with half a brain already suspected that anyways. I haven't said any truths that are dangerous either. I haven't named names, I've only laid out the way the world works. As for why 4chan, it's the best place. It's anonymous, and who would believe me anyways?
What are examples of how to heighten vibrational frequency? What are pitfalls of it? This sounds far more fascinating to me than the talks of working in the shadows.
No pitfalls. You do it by being good, trying your best. Like that hippie bullshit about auras, except actually true. You give off an energy. That energy is reflective of your frequency. When people have an overwhelmingly negative one, this makes them open to being victims of negative entities. They'll feed on it. But you improve your frequency by being good essentially. Like I said before, it's kind of like what people call karma. Everything you do has an effect on your soul.
What do you think about the current jump in technological advances, specifically AI-generated work and AI chatbots? Why does it feel like it suddenly just appeared out of nowhere into the mainstream?
It's going to be a huge threat in terms of manipulation of the masses. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if it slowly vanishes from the mainstream consciousness, just like cloning did back in the day.
What do you think of Anonymous, the group that helps the masses, and Cicada 3301? I know it's silly, but I think you know something more about them.
That's hilarious. Anonymous isn't a group helping anyone, it's random clusters or individuals of dumb shits posturing for attention.
So many regular people benefit from the so-called Matrix. But okay, putting that aside, what's the best way to fight back exactly, and fight back what exactly? Should we organize, go into politics? What are the options?
Honestly, take the first shot. Everyone is waiting for it. Hell, those militia types fantasize about it. But everyone knows what happens to the man who starts the fire, so nobody does it. Humanity has a window of opportunity to save themselves, but that window is rapidly closing and it will never open again. You want to fight back? Then fight.
I have a question. All these celebrities who made deals with evil, let's say they threw everything they know to the public. If they killed him, it would be kind of clear the intention, besides not changing much. Maybe that's very unlikely, but what if it happens someone like you, or someone bigger than you, giving up playing the game and exposing everyone around you? Killing someone doesn't turn back time. Would this select group have a plan if everything seemed to get out of hand?
Depends on how out of hand. Anyone can say anything and it'll easily be discredited and ripped apart by the media. It always is. The question would be as if such a mass disclosure could properly motivate enough people to form lynch mobs, take a chainsaw, and chase down those in power. But of course, people are apathetic. They don't care about anything until it actually impacts them, even though they're too blind to see that it all impacts them.
Do you think once a man has killed someone or done similar acts of violence, especially if outside of context of war where it's somewhat culturally justifiable, is it even possible to have a romantic bond with someone? That level of violence changes a person, no? How can you ever be gentle with the other person and forget how you can be in different context? Like there's no coming back.
I don't know. I don't. I just know that she's always been someone who made me feel things nothing else ever did. Who, with just the sound of her voice, could cut through the frozen remains of my heart. She honestly made me believe in soulmates, as absolutely sappy and stupid as that concept is. I don't know if I'd call what I feel for her as romantic, though we once were close like that.
Have you seen any supernatural beings?
Seen some demons on the physical plane, which is quite a rare sight in and of itself.
You do understand this is a stupid fucking advice. I don't want to be a martyr, and why should I be? Window is rapidly closing and it will never open again. This is not a true statement by any means, it's also megalomaniac. Everything is cyclical. Immortality is impossible. Civilizations will rise and fall. Your life is ultimately important to you, individually. So live it well. If sacrificing yourself for others is your ideal, that's completely legit. Go ahead.
Exactly. You don't want to be a martyr, and so everyone continues to live on their knees. Because to make a stand, to say enough is to die. Things are cyclical, but you have to remember that this is a world where forces are in constant combat. This war has been waging since the beginning of time. But let me be clear, for the past 2,000 years, people have been crying that the end was nigh. It was only a matter of time before they were right, and they finally are. The tools were given hundreds of years ago, and the stage has been set since Crowley. The end of the world, as you know and love it, is almost here. I say this with absolute certainty. The lucky ones will be the ones who die, and may God have mercy on those who are left, because the only way out from there on will be an act of God.
Was it possessed person?
No, possession isn't physical manifestation. Possession is the entity taking the human body as a host, hijacking it to anchor itself in the physical plane in the same way our souls are.
How can we deal with them on the physical plane, even if we don't see it?
Reject them, denounce them, don't be afraid. Negative entities need a negative aura to appear on our plane of existence. The neutral frequency doesn't mesh with them well. Think of it like a barrier, and they can only breach it temporarily and in the right conditions, said conditions making that barrier weaker. It's why hauntings start small and then escalate. They create an atmosphere of fear, and that slowly makes it easier for them to interact on our plane. And you'll always see them. There are other negative and positive planes they can reside on, and those planes overlap with the same space as the neutral physical one. The best they can do there is some slight influence, which of course can be used to breed the right conditions for temporarily appearing on the physical plane.
What did the demon look like? What was it doing?
It was humanoid and featureless, but pure black, like it was absorbing any and all light. I didn't ask, it was mostly just standing there.
Mate again, me? If you're aware of all this semi-knowledge, you should also know that God and Jesus forgive, and you can forgive yourself. The only stupid thing is not turning around on a way you know is wrong. Seems like you're coping hard.
That's just the thing. I don't want to.
My mother 2 years ago went to a woman's shaman cult that somehow made its way to the US. She only went 3 times, but when she came back from her first one, my hindsight almost instantly went off. I could feel the darkness seep off of her. I'm not with her at the moment, but is there any chances I could save her? Or is all hope lost?
No, I would say there is still hope. It's never over till it's over.
The better question is, why are you doing it when you know it's wrong? But we've had this in the last thread. You're just a coping alcoholic, I feel.
It's the scorpion and the frog. It's my nature, and you can't escape your true nature. You can run from it, hide from it, but in the end all that does is get you and others hurt. And I'm far from an alcoholic. I've found myself to have an inability for chemical addictions like that. I drink hard liquor only about 6 times a year and never drink any sort of beer. I'm not 12.
Okay, if you hunt those things as a hobby and met them as often as you say, you surely have pics, right? So why do you not post pics?
Honestly, I never bothered to take pics for a variety of reasons. You wouldn't believe even if I had pictures to show. There's also the fact that any hard evidence is heavily locked down. The last thing the powers that be want is any hard proof of cryptids getting out. Some of such things are what I've personally had to clean up in my work. I don't have pictures because there is nothing that would benefit me or change from being able to produce them.
Do you think that music and media can directly influence my spiritual vibration and create gaps? Or is this irrelevant?
Not in any long-term or harmful manner, though in the moment they can influence the aura of the area.
Because to make a stand, to say enough, is to die. A very fatalistic viewpoint which you're entitled to, but which you should present as an ultimate truth. The end of the world as you know and love it. I didn't and do not love it, and I for one think the world must change. There's a well-known reanimatologist where I live who has dealt with dying children all his professional life, be it accidents, chemical poisonings, illness, whatever. But he went into very fringe Eastern spiritual practices, where he basically started to believe we're in a hologram, and God's projecting everything there is, and nothing has meaning. To anyone who has at least a couple of brain cells, it's obvious that he's just a human being who cannot possibly handle that much secondhand suffering as he did. Basically, his philosophical/spiritual views was an occupational hazard. And I think it's the same with you. You're pulling the blanket hard to one side, you see only what you ever saw. But it is a logical bias, and by law of attraction, if you want to go to reality that is more harmonious, you should be aware of this bias. But you can just as well not want to strive for a better world for yourself. It's up to you. You have not been an agent of positive change for others, for that matter.
It's fatalistic, but that's the point. Whomever takes a stand, a real stand, will die. But in doing so, they will show others the path forward to save themselves. It's Christ-like in that regard. Christ didn't save anyone by dying, but he allowed others to see the path they must take to save themselves. You see, there is a cyclical nature to things. They know it, that's what they fear. A man came to men and showed them the path they needed to save themselves in the next life. They know that one day soon, a man will come to show the people how to save themselves in this one. To fight the darkness that threatens to consume all. Like Christ, this man will die, but in that death the choice for salvation in this world will be handed to the people. To save themselves or let themselves suffer. To stop them. Consider that a prophecy, something they've actually wanted hidden in secret. Hope? That's why things are moving faster. That's why they want to close the window of opportunity as soon as they can. As for my beliefs, my life experiences don't impose them upon me as your aforementioned reanimatologist. In reality, my understanding of the world came before everything I've done. As a young man, I found myself having dreams, visions. Having ideas filling my head that I could best describe as divine inspiration, and things happening in my life that became way too common to be mere coincidence. My understanding of the world came first. Everything I've done or seen after that only served to solidify that understanding.